The Republican effort to delegitimize Joe Biden's election. 12 Republican senators and senators-elect say that they will reject the election results of swing states won by Joe Biden until an audit of alleged fraud is completed. They now have the support of the vice president. None of this has any chance of actually overturning the election. There was no widespread fraud, number one, but looks like it's being done to curry favor with President Trump and his supporters. And among the senators taking part is Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. And to his credit, he's agreed to join me this morning. Senator Johnson, welcome back to Meet the Press. So I want to start with this. Last month, you told a newspaper in your home state that you would not object to the Electoral College certification, quote, unless something surfaced. There have been 57 cases filed by the president or his allies. Not a single court has found a single instance of fraud or any of this evidence seen as legitimate. So what has changed to suddenly put you on the side of questioning the results of this election, sir?
Well, good morning, Chuck, and Happy New Year. Let me first respond on COVID. I think our greatest failure in responding to COVID is we've completely ignored early treatment. And we've actually vilified doctors who have had the courage to practice medicine and treat patients with widely available repurposed drugs. So I just have to point that out. We've utterly failed from that standpoint. To answer your question, I would ask that all your listeners, ask our critics to actually read the letter. One of the points we make is that we are not acting to thwart the democratic process. We're acting to protect it. The fact of the matter is that we have an unsustainable state of affairs in this country where we have tens of millions of people that do not view this election result as legitimate. We've just come off of 4 years where the other side refused to acknowledge the legitimacy of President Trump. And here we are again. And what we're saying is we need transparency. And you do not, when you're trying to investigate wrongdoing in elections, you don't have very much time. And so what we're suggesting is let's set up a commission, as they did. I know it's a long time ago, 1877, but let's take a look at a bipartisan commission to organize all the allegations. Certainly what I did in my hearing is a 3.5-hour hearing. We barely scratched the surface, but organize the allegations. Let's take off the table the ones that have been explained, but also acknowledge the problem areas that have not been explained so that we can restore confidence in our election system. This is an unsustainable state of affairs right now. Yeah. And that's all we're saying is as long as somebody's going to be objecting to this and we're going to be taking a vote, let's propose a solution in terms of transparency, investigation with the commission.
All right, Senator, I want to quote Senator Ben Sasse for you, because what you're alleging is essentially you and your colleagues have created this controversy. So right now we are locked into a destructive, vicious circle in some ways, as you kind of outlined, which is you made an allegation that there was widespread fraud. You have failed to offer specific evidence of that widespread fraud, but you're demanding an investigation on the grounds that there are allegations of widespread fraud. So essentially, you're the arsonist here. President Trump is the arsonist here. You've started this fire, and now you're saying, whoa, look at this. Oh, my God. All these people believe what we told them because you didn't have the guts to tell the truth that this election was fair.
Chuck, this fire was started back in January of 2017. People like Mark Zaid, in his tweet, the coup has started, first of many steps, rebellion and impeachment to follow ultimately. This was started when the mainstream media dropped any pretense of being unbiased and actually chose sides during this election. This fire was started when you completely ignored, for example, our investigation of Hunter Biden. No evidence of wrongdoing there, and now we find out after the election, no, there is a fair amount of evidence to the point that we have a real FBI investigation.
Senator, all right, I've had enough of hearing this.
No, listen, I've had enough of this too. It's the
Senator,
bias in the media that has created a situation where Republicans and conservatives do not trust the mainstream media, and that is what has destroyed the credibility of the media and our institutions, and really
the destruction
shaking confidence in this election result. So I didn't start this.
Listen, you have spent, and I'm just curious, Senator, you have spent much of your time in the last 2 years carrying a lot of this crazy conspiratorial water for President Trump, whether it was the attempt to somehow blame Ukraine for the interference in the election rather than Russia. You've used your committee to sort of create the illusion of voter fraud, as you just described earlier, because there are, quote, allegations. I'm just trying to understand here, what are you doing it for? You're not trying to overturn the election, you just said. Are you simply trying to curry favor with constituents of the president's? Is that what this is all about? Is this a cynical political ploy?
I'm trying to be transparent. One of the things we found out in our hearing is, the basic allegations kind of fall into three categories. I would say the first is the either violation of or lax enforcement of election law. There is voter fraud. There always is. We had one witness talk about 42,000 people voting twice in Nevada. The other issue
just
really
because
is
you
the
have
fact
somebody
that the courts,
say it didn't make it true.
It's easy.
Senator, none of these allegations.
It's,
stop. You don't get to make these allegations that haven't been proven true. Here's what I don't understand. You understand how our government was set up. The reason we have a judiciary is because partisans like yourself weren't going to be trusted by the public to decide who won or lost an election. Let me ask you this. Who carried the state of Wisconsin?
Well, Vice President Biden has won by 20,000 votes. But there are also issues in Wisconsin. One of the things I point out and was revealed in our hearing is I entered in the record 3 letters written by congressional Democrats to the voting machine manufacturers. Now, at that point in time, I didn't hear Chuck Schumer call it quackery or conspiracy theory or a ridiculous charade. But that's exactly how he attacked my hearing that I thought was a really good hearing that laid out some of the issues. We had Chris Krebs testify. Chris Krebs said, this is the most secure election. But in our hearing, he actually admitted, well, he wasn't talking about potential fraud. He was just looking at hacking. He also admitted that some of these election and tabulation machines are hooked up to the internet, which privately told me that wasn't the case. So again, I didn't criticize Democrats when they were talking about potential hacking of voting machines, but now it's quackery, now it's conspiracy theory. That's the problem, Chuck. There's a double standard here, and we are not being transparent, and we are dismissing the concerns of tens of millions of Americans. Again, I didn't light this fire. This fire was lit over 4 years ago, and we've destroyed the credibility you have destroyed the credibility of the news media by your bias, and of course people like James Comey, Andrew McCabe, John Brennan destroyed the credibility of the FBI and our justice system as well. We have an enormous problem in this country. It's unsustainable, and the only way you solve it is with information and transparency and hearings and investigations.
So
it's not quackery. It's not conspiracy theory. It's what's going to be required.
Let me ask you this. Then why didn't you hold hearings about the 9/11 truthers? There's plenty of people who thought 9/11 was an inside job. So what you're basically saying is that there's enough people who believe in a conspiracy theory.
I held
if there's enough people
who
I
figured was the most relevant issue.
You're going to do it. How about the moon landing?
And obviously,
are you going to hold hearings
election,
on that?
What I would like to hold hearings on, what I was talking about, and why did we not spend hundreds of billions of dollars exploring early treatment? Why did we vilify doctors who had the courage to treat COVID patients, practice medicine, try and find available, cheap, repurposed drugs to do so? Why? I'd love to hold hearings on that. There are all kinds of things that I'd like to hold hearings on. You have to kind of pick and choose based on priorities. Right now, we have this election. We've got tens of millions of Americans that think this election was stolen. We need to get to the bottom of it. Again, what's explained, we need to explain it, get that off the table. But we also have to acknowledge there were some real problems here. There's some issues that need to be explored and investigated.
You got to ask yourself, when you tell people a million times that something was stolen or something was fraud and then they believe it, I think you need to look in the mirror and ask yourself why so many people
Chuck, you need to look
this.
in your mirror and
Senator Johnson, I've got to go. I appreciate you coming on.
Collusion with the Trump campaign hoax. That is what you did in the media. You carried that water for years. You destroyed the credibility of the press.
Senator Johnson, other than crediting you for coming on, I appreciate that, because only 2 of your colleagues had the guts to say yes this weekend about this conspiracy theory that you're working on. Thanks for coming on. That I appreciate. When we come back, I'm going to talk to voting rights. Hello from Washington. I'm Chuck Todd, and thanks for checking out the Meet the Press channel on YouTube. Click on the button down here to subscribe, and click over here to watch the latest interviews, highlights, and other digital exclusives.